Ah, golly, here we go again. Welcome back to Grand Theft Audio Song Brackets, currently doing business as Disney Song Brackets, a show where I make a list of roughly 64 songs throughout the entire Disney Animated Canon of the last 100 years or so, divide them into four roughly chronological regions, seed them according to my own bizarre internal calculus, and put them in a bracket for you, the voting public, to vote on to determine which Disney songs of the last 100 years will make it to a final four, and which of those final four was the greatest Disney song of them all. As you can see, I've recently made a trip to Disneyland where I've picked up not a small number of things, not the least of which is an upper respiratory infection. Exciting. That's the ride that they don't really tell you about, but let me tell you, it is not an e-ticket, but I definitely got the lightning lane for it, if you know what I mean. Anyway, that's why I sound like this, but I'm dedicated enough that I know you all have been waiting long enough that you've probably forgotten about this, so I figured I'd just go ahead, wrap up the results of our first round of the quote-unquote classics, that is, songs ranging from movies from about Snow White to about the middle of the Junk Book. If you're just now joining us, I'm going to read off those results right here. From the top, we had matchup number one was our top seed, When You Wish Upon a Star, versus our bottom seed, Saludos Amigos, the less popular cousin of Three Caballeros, and sure enough, Saludos Amigos did not do well in this. It only got one vote out of a total of 13. 13 votes is what we saw in all rounds this time around, leaving our top seed the winner with 12 votes. Now, interestingly, there is actually a much better song in this movie that I could have picked, which is Brazil, one of the first versions, I think, on film included of this song, which is incredibly catchy, great song. Pink Martini does a great version of it. But I've decided that I'm only going to be using songs specifically made for these movies, not previous compositions, which is one of the reasons why I'm not doing Fantasia. So Brazil is unfortunately off the table there, and you're just going to have to wait for my bracket of music from Terry Gilliam movies. Matchup number two, our number 8 seed, You Can Fly from Peter Pan, versus our number 9 seed, Baby Mine from Dumbo. Now, as much as a tearjerker as it was, Baby Mine could not stand up to the joy and exultation of You Can Fly. I should note that joy and exultation is about the opposite of what my child experienced when they rode that for the first time, Peter Pan, over at Disneyland. They started screaming their heads off within about 5 seconds. You Can Fly wins 8-5. Matchup number 3, our 4th seed, Cruella de Vil, versus our 13th seed, Three Caballeros. Now, I noticed that these songs from these movies designed to promote the good neighbor policy in World War II, they were not very popular this time around. They just can't catch a break. Just like Saludos Amigos before it, Three Caballeros only gets one vote in the face of Cruella's 12. But to its credit, Cruella de Vil is pretty darn catchy. We heard a pretty neat jazz version of it playing when we were in the Hollywood section of California Adventure. So, performed by a live band, no less. So, it's got staying power. We'll see how it does next time. Matchup number 4. This will face Cruella de Vil next time around. We had our number 5 seed, Hi Ho, versus our number 12 seed, Headless Horseman, by Bing Crosby. Now, for the record, I really liked this Headless Horseman song. It was very moody, and I could definitely see where something like Over the Garden Wall would have drawn influence from this. Remember the scene where they're in the inn and over the garden wall, and they're asking, who are you? And the highwayman has his own little song that he sings. This probably is in that thing's DNA. Regardless of that, it still only got one vote, got absolutely blown out of the water by those 7 dwarves. So next round we'll see Hi Ho versus Cruella de Vil. Matchup number 5. We had our 2nd seed, Bare Necessities, versus our 15th seed, Higatus Figatus, not Hippitus Pippitus, as previously stated. And, even disregarding the fact that I misspelled that name last time around to the song from one of my favorite movies, or at least used to be, I never really expected this song to do all that well anyway. I was briefly elated when I went to Fantasyland and I saw that there was, in fact, a store named after this song, only to go in and discover it's just filled with the same usual princess stuff and as every other store there. Disney, if you're listening, the people demand Archimedes merch. Just give me a little Archimedes on my shoulder. You make the Kronk angel and devil. You make the little bird from Haunted Mansion, Chip and Dale. Give us a little Archimedes. For those of us who wore out this video cassette tape. Give them some random phrases. You're printing your own money here. Anyway, It, did better than I thought it was going to do, though, because it did manage to get 3 votes. So there's some of you out there who like it. It still loses to 10 votes for Bare Necessities, because it's Bare Necessities. Number 6. And then we have A Dream is a Wish, Your Heart Makes, versus this one song from Bambi, and we're back to where we were. Bambi song only gets 1 vote to Dream is a Wish, Your Heart Makes, getting 12. Which, that's pretty typical, but somebody out there is definitely being a contrarian. Might be my own kid, I don't know. Matchup 7. We saw our number 3 seed, Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo, versus our number 14 seed, A Very Merry Unbirthday to You, a song that got burned into my brain as I went on the teacups at least 3 times. And I gotta say, it must have been burned into all of your brains too, because we have our very first upset of the bracket here. Yes, Alice and Friends absolutely clobber the fairy godmother here, and Very Merry Unbirthday wins 8-5 against Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo, so they'll go on to round 2. Finally, we have matchup 8, or as I like to call it, the Who Could Care bracket. Given, of course, that I'm not the target demographic for princess movies. This is Someday My Prince Will Come versus Once Upon a Dream, and to me, they're basically thematically the same song. But that being said, Sleeping Beauty, having recently seen some more scenes from it, it is an objectively better looking movie than Snow White. And I guess that translates to it sonically as well, because most of you felt that way. And the song from Sleeping Beauty carries the day 11-2. Next round, we are seeing the following 4 matchups. Matchup number 1, our first seed, When You Wish Upon a Star, versus our 8th seed, You Can Fly, from Peter Pan. Matchup 2, our 4th seed, Cruella de Vil, versus our 5th seed, Hi Ho, from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Matchup 3, our 2nd seed, Bare Necessities, versus our 7th seed, A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes. And finally, matchup number 4, our 14th seed, A Very Merry Unbirthday to You, versus our 11th seed, Once Upon a Dream. I hope you're all doing well out there. Tell all your friends, tell your family about this bracket, tell the neighborhood kids, including the weird one who just plays in your driveway. If I get above 30 votes this next round, I will do my best to do an acapella version, an acapella snippet of each song, one that's not, long enough to cause any copyright strikes, prior to discussing the results of each matchup. If I get over 60 votes, I will do a version of that that also includes instrumentals, also a cappella. So just a little something to sweeten the pot there. I know you all missed that from my previous GTA brackets. Maybe if you guys can encourage me, and if my throat will let me in a week, maybe I can do that for you. But in the meantime, hope you're all doing well. I hope I get better eventually, and I should see you in about a week. So yeah, I'll plan on making another one of these probably around Sunday or so. Anyway, hope you're all doing well. Take care, and have a wonderful week.